but CDCR as opposed to many parts of it. And things like, are the number of phone calls in the Ashgar settlement? We had a whole discussion in my bill. We tried to give people the incentive to change by having a phone call a month or whatever, but CDCR insisted, no, it can only be a phone call a year. So, you know, I really applaud the changes that we're making, but I want to see if we can't include maybe some other things that didn't get included in the Ashgar settlement, but were in the original legislation. And we did have the unfortunate incident of a person released to the general population who was murdered, as you know. And it seems to me that probably we need some specialized training for the staff into which people are released, but also the programming to assist inmates, whether or not they have a gang connection as specified, you know, because that's been disputed, exactly how we used to make those designations.
Right, right.
Some kind of programming for people who've been held in solitary confinement for long periods of time. And, you know, one of the things we've learned about the psychological implications of that is that it's scary to be around other human beings. And if you're in a situation where there can be either use of force incidents or inmate on inmate violence, there might need to be some special supports.
Absolutely. Thanks to our partnership with the Division of Rehabilitative Programs and the Innovative Grants, there are lots of programs out there in our institutions that now all of the released inmates have full access to all of those programs.
Wouldn't it make sense to do it? I believe we've cut the step-down period from 5 years to 2.5 years.
The step-down process is in 6 months increments, but those are only for offenders that still had an STG nexus. The majority of the inmates that we're seeing today do not, and they're being released. So
Okay.
I mean,
and why were they inside then if it was determined they didn't have a gang affiliation? Because it had been determined that they did under the old system?
They were either validated gang members or validated gang associates. So it's a little different process post-Ashgar as far as the review process that is done on them.
No, right. And I know we're no longer doing things like having people name names in order to get out, which is often not a very valid way of getting correct information. But it is of concern to me that we have decided we don't need to do any particular preparation or programming to assist
We would
inmates
certainly
to
welcome
do
that. We just haven't had the opportunity nor the time to be able to process, to develop a program with the expectation of the courts for this expedited reviews. So we could certainly welcome and partner with DRP to see what we could develop.
Okay. And what about, are we doing any preparation for the staff into which people are going to be released into the general population?
Well, I mean, obviously our goal is to keep everybody safe. All of the offenders that are being released, all of the offenders that are on those current yards, as well as our staff. And so the hope is for these IGI staff to be able to assist with that, with recognizing and understand that the gang intelligence process is very, very complex on how they communicate and in code, basically. And of course, I'm no gang expert, so please bear with me here. But our IGI staff are. And so the whole purpose of these staff is to be able to evaluate in correspondence, in what we call kites, or things found on the units, intel received on the yards, to be able to interpret whether there is potential safety concerns for the general population or for staff. And so that's their key role, is to help provide that training on those yards. But as far as specific training, like formal training through IST, we do have a gang training component as part of our regular annual block training.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. At some point, I'd be interested in seeing what it is. I've seen some of the training videos that, in all honesty, didn't, I think could have been more sensitively handled. I saw some at Pelican Bay when I was up there, and they basically didn't seem to be oriented toward a rehabilitative approach to the people who were there.
I will say we've gone through a paradigm shift. Staff were very anxious when we started releasing the Pelican Bay inmates. We understand the majority of our current staff were employed post-Pelican Bay, so inmates that were on those yards and they were validated, they were shipped away, and they were no longer causing problems on the yards. So needless to say, all staff had were the horror stories from the 70s and early 80s prior to the implementation of Pelican Bay. And so they were fearful. We've really overcome that. With the time, although it's only been, it's been a relatively short amount of time since we started releasing the offenders. Prior to the Ashker settlement, there were about 830 inmates released prior to the Ashker settlement. So we have those coupled with the 900. So let's say we have 1,700 inmates out there, and we haven't seen, a lot of the significant increase in violence that some of the correctional staff thought we would. And so it's really helped as time goes on and we message that people mature. And we all know, and there's lots of research to talk about youthful offenders and what they do. And as we get older, we mature. And so, these gentlemen now that are being released are, in their 40s. They're not at the same level as they were when they were in their 20s. And so we fortunately have been able to overcome that obstacle within the staff's minds.
Okay, thank you. I think that's, again, a very positive and great step forward. And thank you for doing that and helping us move forward with it. Are there any comments from the LAO on this item?
Thank you, Madam Chair. We agree with the department that these changes in segregated housing policies will drive savings, and we think their estimate of the savings is reasonable. However, we do have a concern with their proposal to redirect $5.8 million from those savings to augment the investigative services unit. We would acknowledge that it's possible that the release of some offenders could derive some increased workload for this ISU unit. However, at this point, we don't think the department's really established a very clear nexus between these specific policy changes and the workload for the ISU. In particular, they haven't provided a detailed workload analysis that would provide justification for how they arrived at their estimate that 48 additional staff are needed. We would note that that's roughly an 18% increase in the ISU staffing levels. We would also note that there have been some key workload drivers for the ISU unit that have decreased in recent years. In particular, there's been a pretty dramatic decline in violence in state prisons from about 8,500 assaults on inmates and staff in 2012-13 to roughly 1,200 in 2014-15. And one of the key functions of the ISU unit is investigating those violent incidents, so that would be a pretty significant decline in that workload. We would also note that the prison population has been declining as well. So to the extent there are fewer inmates in the state prisons, that should also reduce some of the workload for this ISU unit. Given these concerns, we are recommending that the legislature reject the redirection of that $5.8 million at this time. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Department of Finance.
We would just note that this is a significant policy change and that this proposal would ensure that the department has sufficient resources to maintain the safety of staff, inmates, and the public as these changes are being implemented. We do recognize that there's some uncertainty with the workload, and that's why 3.2 million of the 16-17 request is limited term. This is going to allow the department to determine the exact amount of ongoing workload for the investigative services unit.
Okay, thank you. Are there any additional questions from the subcommittee? Or Senator Bell, and
Just
then I'll ask.
quickly, kind of what I get out of this is there's 1,000 people that got transferred, Madam Chair, right? 1,000 people. And then based on the 1,000 people, that justifies 48 new staff people. Is that what I'm hearing? For the investigative unit? I don't understand that at all. I kind of like,
Yeah.
well, you know, like,
Okay.
like that, for every 20 people released, you got to have another staff member. You know, it doesn't, it kind of, I don't see it, you know, I'm kind of trying to figure out what the relationship is. And then you know, how many assaults have taken place so far from the 1,000 people? Have they had do you have an assault rate, like how many people were assaulted?
Yeah, they do, and it's
You know, it's
going
like,
down,
well,
which is a
well,
great credit to the department.
I'm looking at those 1,000 people,
Oh.
you know, like I'm looking at like this 1,000 people, how many of them have been assaulted since they've been transferred? Do you have that number?
I do not have that
So
specific
that might be
data.
something we can get. And then one guy was killed, right? Has there been, you know, one guy has been killed, or has there been more?
There's one that I'm aware of at
Okay.
CSP SAC that appears to may have had it's still under investigation.
Okay, so I'd like to know what caused that and what's going on there, so. You know, I'm sort of like trying to figure out the rationale. Okay, so that's, Madam Chair, that's my kind of confused, I was confused when I read this one. What's the reason, what the relationship was in terms of the request for the
Right.
budget, and it didn't make sense.
Right. Well, let me say,
I'll listen, I'll listen.
for me, one of the questions would be, is the additional 48 staff for the function of investigating these incidents the best use of money? Because I think the LAO makes very valid points about the fact that, and congratulations to CDCR, they've been successful in lowering the assault rate and have found on investigation that a number of people in solitary confinement for alleged gang affiliations really didn't have them, maybe.
Well, they haven't
Right.
had any gang-related activity in a specific amount of time.
Okay,
What got them there initially was gang-related behavior, but they haven't had subsequent activity.
yeah, alleged gang-related activity, right. Okay. So the question, I frankly, I'm going to recommend that we hold this item open because it seems to me that the money might be better spent, at least part of it, in getting some programming to assist people who've been in solitary confinement for long periods of time to reintegrate as effectively as possible, and also do some in-service training for our staff. You know, there are psychologists, there are people who have studied these things at UC who came and testified at our hearings. They would come and talk to officers. It would be very inexpensive. They know the impact of solitary confinement on people psychologically, just so that the staff is aware of that. It would make everybody's life a little bit easier, I would think. So, you know, I would, I'm going to recommend that we hold this item open and that we look at not necessarily spending this amount of money, but think about how we could really enhance the program that was put into place and enhanced by having the Ashkar settlement. Does any of you object to holding it open? Are there any comments from the public? Okay. Seeing and hearing none, we have our last item of the day. Item issue number 4, alternative housing for inmates. And who is going to be representing CDCR? Mr. Verbal, are you here for that?
The whole group of us. We're
Yes,
gonna,
the whole,
you'll have a fourth person coming up shortly that will replace me. So I'm going to get the ball rolling, and then we'll let the
Okay.
people who really know the issue sit here and answer any questions you
Okay.
might have. So the department has 3 separate requests within this alternative housing area. First, we request $32.1 million for the continuation of the Male Community Reentry Program, MCRP, in 2016-17 and ongoing. In addition, the budget proposes to expand the eligibility criteria for this particular program from within 120 days of release to 180 days. The MCRP, as you all know, was first established in 2014-15 as part of the Recidivism Reduction Fund, came with it a $20 million investment in this program. As a result of this $20 million, the department has, as of today, opened up 3 different MCRPs, 1 each in Los Angeles, Kern, and Butte counties. And beyond that, we plan to have 2 more facilities open by the end of this fiscal year and 2 more open in 2016-17 for a total of 7 facilities offering 680 beds. The second proposal involves a $390,000 request starting in budget year to expand the capacity at 2 of our existing CCTRPs. This is also often referred to as our Enhanced Alternative Custody Program facilities. The 2 facilities are located in San Diego and Santa Fe Springs. Our proposal is to expand the capacity at each of those facilities by 36 beds. With this, total beds at each of the facilities will be 118. In the third and final proposal, CDCR requests 20 positions and $3.3 million in current year and 40 positions and $6 million in budget year and ongoing to provide field and administrative support for a 12-month alternative custody program for our male and female inmate population. This is in order to comply with the Sassman versus Brown court order that was released in September of 2015. This program previously was being run as a female-only facility. However, the courts did determine in their order that it must be gender neutral and therefore offered to our male inmates as well. This proposal outlines the department's plan to comply with the Sassman order. I am joined by, far right, Mr. Jay Verbal of our Division of Adult Institutions, still joined by Ms. Allison, also of our Division of Adult Institutions, and you will be joined shortly by Cynthia Flores de Leon of our Division of Rehabilitative Programs. These 3 will walk you through an overview of each of our alternative housing options that are out there right now that are listed in your agenda. We'll then address the questions that are listed on the agenda, and then finally, we'll be happy to answer any questions the committee has.
thank you. Good afternoon, Mr. Verbal.
Thank you for having us here today and allowing us to share our programs. Can you hear okay? Yeah, it's working.
Yeah.
So thank you for having us here today and allowing us to share our programs with you. I always get excited about being able to come and share in front of the committee some of the exciting progress that we're making with our programs out in the community. Currently, we have a alternative custody program that was for women in the past, but will open up for men. And that program allows the offender to apply, go through an individual treatment plan. Am I changing?
Oh, okay.
I'm sorry. Is that better? Oh. So the program allows our offenders to apply for and go back into the community with an integrated individual treatment plan, an ITARP plan, work with our parole coordinators, and then be provided supervision out under the parole model in the community. Currently, that program is for females only, or was for females only, and now will expand to a male-based ACP along with a female offender ACP, ran under the same area. With that being said, we will be able to effectively roll the program out with new regulations that expand to both male and female, process the applications, and hopefully assist them in the foundation of reunification out to their families in the community, along with assistance with job skills, hopefully educational values, either to reinstate back into school, colleges, where they may have left off before their incarceration or during their incarceration. With that being said, we also then have our CCTRP for our female offenders, and Cynthia will talk more about the male side on that counterpart. But for our CCTRPs, we're located in San Diego, Los Angeles, and Bakersfield. Each one of those currently are 82 beds in San Diego, 82 beds in Los Angeles, and 75 beds in Bakersfield. We have a 50-bed unit coming on board. We're hoping that either the very last week in March or the first week in April, the female offenders will become housed there for a participant in the CCTRP is what they'll become. They'll be under a parole supervision model also out there, same based and actual ran by the same type of contract unit as we have established today. With that being said, those units have been very successful. They're full, and there's a waiting list for those offenders to join into that program. And I've had the ability to share that program with many other folks walking through, and always happy to do that. But those programs are significant in decreasing recidivism. We've had success stories upon success stories of both family reunification, rebuilding that trust that they lose sometimes with their family when they become incarcerated, rejoining of the children, the husbands, the wives, just the overall family members' support, and at the same time gaining employment in the community before going home, so they can establish a way to both care for themselves, the family members, and become what I would call a very productive member back into the community. So that's actually been a success for California. We get to share in that success. You have allowed us to have that program, and I just want to say thank you for that.
Thank you. Oh, do you have a question? Okay. Yeah. Why don't you just wait? We'll have the whole presentation, and then we'll have questions.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair. So my name is Cynthia Flores-DeLine. I'm the Deputy Director for Community Reentry Services for Department of Corrections. I oversee the Male Community Reentry Program, which has been in its inception. Our first MCRP program was activated April 1st in Los Angeles. As Mr. Lopez indicated, we have 150 beds in Los Angeles. We currently have 50 beds in our Kern County MCRP and 20 beds, which is a unique collaborative. It's not a community-based program that we're contracting with. It is with the Butte County Probation Department. It is a 20-bed facility that came online in January of 2016. And we are slated to bring on an additional Los Angeles MCRP program within the next 30 days. We are very close to executing that contract this week and having our first participants arrive within the next 30 to 45 days. Similar to the CCTRP program, this program is for males that are serving their last 120 days of their sentence into their home community. So for these 3 locations, these 3 counties, the eligible population that are screened and endorsed in the institutions they must return back to their county of legal residence. So they are going back to Los Angeles. That's where their home community is. They are being availed to many community linkages. They are participating in substance use disorder treatment. So and as well as resources for job development. Many of our participants have acquired employment and are leaving off grounds during the day for their employment, as well as attending community colleges in the community. Linking back with their families. Immediate upon arrival, when they get there, they're seen by their case manager, who assesses what their needs and interests are, so that the programs are tailored very close to what their interests are. So we are on target to, we're in conversations and negotiations with additional providers to expand to 3 additional sites after this 4th one comes on board. We will have up to 680 beds available to males for these programs beginning of the next budget year. Should we open it to questions, or I can go ahead and lead into the question that you may have?
Well, why don't we just ask if the LAO has any comments?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I'll go over our comments related to both the Male Community Reentry Program and the alternative custody programs that were mentioned. I'll start with Male Community Reentry. We did have some concerns with the governor's proposal for this program, and we are recommending that the legislature reject the request for the $32 million to continue to operate the male community reentry programs that currently operate and the expansion that's also being proposed. The main reason for doing so is that the program does not target the higher risk offenders that have been shown to have the greatest impact on reducing recidivism. It's a volunteer program, so you apply on a first-come, first-served basis and go through a review process that the department runs. And so the last numbers we had available showed that about 1/5 of the current participants were not the moderate to high-risk offenders where you would see that recidivism benefit. So the program currently doesn't seem to be operating in the most cost-effective manner possible. And the second component really is that it's a very costly program to run. When we estimated the cost of the current programs, it was about $58,000 to operate a MCRP bed for a year. Of course, you can put multiple people in each bed, but it's a very costly program to operate, given that it's not, we didn't see it that it was being operated in the most cost-effective manner possible. So, as I mentioned, we're recommending the legislature reject the funding proposal for MCRP, acknowledge that to the extent the legislature wants to devote resources to rehabilitative programming, that programs that target those moderate to high-risk offenders where we're going to see the greatest recidivism reduction would give you a more bang for your buck than programs that do include pieces that target lower risk offenders who aren't likely to respond to programming in the same way. So that's MCRP, and now let me just give you a little bit of our assessment on the alternative custody programs. We found that the proposals for both the EACP and the ACP seem to be aligned with what is required from the Sassman Court Order. We did have a concern about the proposed reduction in the program length for the female ACP program. As the department mentioned, they're proposing the male ACP and female ACP to operate for 12 months. Currently, the female ACP is operating for, you can be in the program for 24 months. And we did not see that that reduction was justified, and that there hasn't been a rationale provided for why the program would operate more effectively as a one-year program than the current two-year program is provided. The department did provide some data on the current female participants, and about 1/5 of the participants in the program were there for over a year. So if that historical information is indicative of what's going to happen ongoing for the ACP program, you could see some female participants who would have liked to have continued in the program for longer than a year who are not able to do so, and we're not clear on why that trade-off between the 2-year and 1-year program was made. So what we're recommending is that the legislature withhold action on the proposals related to the ACP so that more information can be provided about why operating the program, both the male ACP and the female ACP, as a 1-year program is the most effective solution, as well as more information on the fiscal effects of what it would take to operate these existing programs for 2 years as opposed to the 1-year program. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Department of Finance? No, okay, no comment from the Department of Finance. Just out of curiosity, is there anyone here with a comment from the public? Yeah. Good, so we'll just go to questions from the committee, but maybe you want to respond to the LAO? Yes. Mr. Brooks, so yeah. Either one of.
No, it's not. Oops. I have a roll here.
Thank you. The department would like to see ACP for male and female, especially it's been for female, roll out and be very successful. This is a large undertaking for a new program for male ACP to join in to a program that's been previously existing for females. With that being said, you want to both have effective supervision and an effective course of action when you roll out such a large-scale program throughout all the counties. The 58 counties will be receiving the new male offender back into their community to be supervised by parole, at the same time while adequately addressing their needs while being received out in that county, working with the families to accept them back, or another support system that they may need, along with aligning just the timeframes that are found with this program. And with that being said, we were looking at a 12-month rollout on that program, 12 months to be allowed into there. The females would be remaining in there, so it wouldn't affect anybody who was currently out today, but the application process would go down to a full 12 months into the program. As the LOA said, we had, LAO had stated, we had provided numbers. There was about 20% of the females out there now that have a longer than the 12 to 24 months, but most of those are centered around about 13 to 16 months in there, and we watch that very closely. It's not that we would like to restrict the program to just the females, but we know that to be successful in such a large undertaking of this magnitude of all the county services that are out there, incorporating the male offenders back with their families into both either then an educational environment, work environment, and doing that, we just felt like that would be an effective means of support along with what we're asking for.
I have to say, I'm not understanding the question and the answer then.
Okay.
The question, what I thought I heard from the LAO was that you were continuing to allow male offenders to be in the program for 22 months, but that female offenders would have to be discharged at the end of a year.
No, so the
That's what I thought you said, no?